Hey there boys and girls, Lucky here and welcome back to another Battalion 1944 video. Today we'll talk about ADS, also known as aim down sights, and whether or not it is skillful. Now, there's this common stigma around ADS being not skillful or similar thoughts around it like in my jump shot video, which is linked in the description by the way in case you missed it. But where does this opinion come from, since most modern games offer the option to go ADS already? As always, firstly let's go to the definition and factors around it to get that out of the way. Aiming down sights means you're aiming the provided scope of your weapon to gain a secondary way of aiming said weapon. By doing so you often get a slightly smaller FOV, providing a zoom of some sort, and very often you're also punished with decreased movement speed. Now, depending on whether or not the FOV changes when using ADS determines a couple of different things. For sure, having two different options of zooms available offers more possibilities in gameplay, however there's also a small drawback of having tunnel vision depending on how much zoom there is. Another mechanic is that very often sensitivity can be adjusted when in ADS mode, meaning you could set up a sense for quick looking around and one for shooting or aiming. Personally, I wouldn't call that a huge benefit, but rather the same as with the other things. It's kind of like a two-edged sword, since you always gain something and lose something. For example, lastly here, having to learn two sensitivities, which most likely will result in less consistency from my point of view. ADS also commonly introduces a delay before being able to make use of the increased accuracy when having finished the animation for it. This is of course for balancing reasons, otherwise you would have quickscoping like in pre-1.6. So there are always pros and cons again to a certain mechanic. Just introducing the mechanic, however, already will make you have to choose between using it or not and which mode is proper for your current situation. Now, before we move on, another handicap that should not be forgotten is that using ADS in, for example, Battalion right here, will only give you your iron sights, with the exception obviously of scoped snipers. This results in the weapon model blocking the lower part of your screen, which potentially will make you miss more targets unless you compensate your crosshair placement, in which case you'll have to flick more instead of being able to hold the angle normally. Again, this results in a slightly less favorable position for the player using ADS, yet still having it as a necessary option for aim duels, especially at longer ranges or even medium ranges depending on how you play. So, if all of that can be seen as more of a drawback or making it hard to play for some scenarios, why do people still call it unskillful? Now, as often as I think about the issue here, or the main issue, I think it again comes from the CS community, since most weapons there are made to be hip-fired while standing still. The exception there are the SG and the AUG, which enable you to aim down sights. And again, it is hard to compare those games, since in CS those ADS weapons have far better arm penetration and offer scopes with zooms, which helps a lot in CS gameplay, as well as a scope that is not covering the majority of your screen. So, while in CS those weapons are stronger and balanced by money, the metagames still favor the AK and more nades, for example. ADS in classic FPS doesn't bring you huge benefits, as in CS especially, since it's available in all weapons and not only the statistically stronger ones. You could also make a comparison to Unreal or Quake here, since they are also respected as skillful games and don't feature any ADS, besides again for like sniper weapons. Even though the gameplay pace is more comparable here, you still have to keep in mind the gameplay differences. The quick 180 turns, rocket jumps all require very fast movements, and many weapons are already spot on and don't feature hipfire spread, unless the weapon was designed that way. Again, creating weapon options has certain balancing in mind. May it be ADS options, or money restrictions, or shields, or jump pads, or whatever is kind of featured in the gameplay. A game does not need ADS to make it harder or skillful. Having it also doesn't make it any less competitive or easier or harder to play. It simply is another option to build into your gameplay. So I hope I was able to clear some of the confusion on the topic as always and give you another kind of insight into some, I guess, gameplay mechanics and how you can choose to make games different, and that one mechanic cannot simply just be transferred over to a different game and say, oh well, but this right here is a skillful game, and over there this doesn't have this, so it's not skillful. It's not as simple as that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all for now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and luckySkillFaker out.